Hello friends, today I am going to cover the top 10 JavaScript interview questions that are most likely to be asked from a candidate who has experience from 0 to 2 years. Okay, if you are new to JavaScript, then don't miss it, and if you are experienced, then revise the questions at least one time because sometimes we know only half and incomplete answers. Hey, my name is Happy and I help candidates in cracking interviews. So let's start with the first question.
And yes, for a real interview experience, first hear the question, pause the video, then think about your own answer, then play my answer and compare it with yours.
What are arrow functions in JavaScript? What is its use? Nowadays, arrow functions are a very important part of any programming language. It is used everywhere in JavaScript applications. And arrow function is just a shortcut way of writing the normal functions. Like in normal functions, we have a parameter list and a function body, right? Similarly, in arrow functions, we have round brackets, arrow operator, and curly braces. So inside the round bracket, we will put the parameter list, and inside the curly braces, we put the function body. So simple, right? So for example, suppose we have a normal function code where we have an add function like this. And then we call the function add like this by passing the parameters. Now the same thing can be done by using arrow functions also. See here, you can declare one add variable and then after equal inside the brackets, you can pass the parameters x and y. In normal functions also we pass parameters, right? In arrow function we pass like this. If you do not have any parameters, then leave this brackets empty. Now after this arrow operator, we can write the code statement or the logic which we normally write inside the curly braces of normal functions. Great. Now compare this one line code with the previous one, which was the traditional function approach. We have removed 4 lines of code in a single line, right? So the arrow function will make the code shorter and simpler. Even in this case, you do not have to write this return keyword with the arrow function. Arrow function will automatically understand that. Okay. So finally, the definition of the arrow function is arrow functions, also known as fat arrow functions, are a simpler and shorter way of defining functions in JavaScript. That's it. Now I think this concept is permanently fixed in your memory. What is scope in JavaScript? This is a very important concept related to the accessibility of variables in JavaScript. There are 3 types of scopes. First is global scope, where we define the variable at top of the program like this. Then in function scope, variables are defined inside the function. And third is local or block scope, where the variable is defined inside an if block or an else block or any other block. Okay. Now the difference is all 3 variables can be accessed as per their scope. For example, all 3 variables will be accessible inside the if block, meaning at block level all 3 variables are accessible. But only function and global variable are accessible inside function. The block variable is not accessible outside its own block. Okay. Then only global variables can be accessible everywhere, and function variables are not accessible outside their functions. Okay. That is how global function and block variables are defined and accessed. Finally, what is scope? Scope determines where variables are defined and where they can be accessed. Okay. Now you know the concept of scope. Alright friends, before moving to the next question, if you have not yet accepted the never give up challenge, then accept it. Promise yourself you will never give up until you crack the interview. Start and accept this challenge by writing never give up in the comments right now and feel the confidence. What is hosting in JavaScript? First of all, it is not related to website hosting or server hosting. It is different. There is one extra I here, hoisting. Sorry for my pronunciation, but it is hoisting. Let's see the code first. For example, this is the code. Here function is called first, and then we are declaring and defining my function after calling the function. Now the question is, how is it even possible to call the function first even before declaring and defining it? This is possible because JavaScript code will be executed in top-down approach. Then this should give an error exactly, but this is possible because of hoisting. When you run this code, the JavaScript engine will automatically move the method declaration to the top of the scope. Okay. So the code will be rearranged before execution. Okay. JavaScript engine will itself do it and it will therefore work. One more example, this code where a variable is declared at the end will work and give the output. Again, hoisting will move the variable declaration to the top of the scope at the compile time. So it will also work. But remember, the output with the let keyword will be different. And that is because it does not allow hoisting. Okay. So you can try, you can see the difference. Finally, the definition of hoisting is: hoisting is a JavaScript behavior where functions and variable declarations are moved to the top of their respective scopes. Scope, remember, during the compilation phase. Okay. I already explained the scope in previous question. That is the answer to this question. What are variables? What is the difference between var, let, and const keywords? Very important question. The simplest definition of a variable is: variables are used to store or hold data. For example, here 10 is the data or value and we used the var keyword to store it. Similarly, other than var, we can also use the let and const keyword to store the data. The scope of var variable is inside the whole function, whereas the scope of let and const variable is inside the block only, like an if block, a while loop block, etc. Now let me show you the differences between them with the help of the code. Here is the code example for the var keyword. Here we have one function example, and inside that we have an if condition that is always true. Inside it, we are using the var keyword to assign the count a number value of 10. When we print the count inside the if block, the output will be 10, which is expected. But when we print the count even outside the if block, even there outside, it will print 10 as the output like this. The point is, var creates a function scoped variable, meaning that even though you defined the variable var inside the if block, it is still available outside the if block because it is a function scoped and not block scoped. And in the programming world, block scoped variables are considered a better way because they give clarity about the life of the variable. Therefore, as a solution, the better way of defining the variable is now using the let keyword. Here is the same code, just I replaced this var count variable with the let keyword. Now this let variable will work only inside the if block. And if you try to access this variable outside the if block, then you will get the error count is not defined error. So the reason is, let's create a block scoped variable, not a function scoped variable. Okay. Therefore, the variable will be available inside the same block in which it is defined inside the curly braces. This keyword let is more popular because it will not create confusion about the scope of the variable. Alright, the next keyword is the const keyword, which purpose is slightly different from the var and let keywords. Here in the code, you can see we assigned const z equal to 10, and then we are trying to assign a new value to z. But then our program will throw an error while logging. The reason is, const can be assigned only once and its value cannot be changed afterwards. Therefore, use const when you do not want to change the value of a variable after the first assignment. Okay. Its use is different from the let and where keywords. Great, now you know all the differences between these three keywords. And like your favorite movie or song, you are not going to forget this ever. What is the difference between primitive and non-primitive data types? Very important question. Here is the list of data types in JavaScript. First of all, primitive and non-primitive are the categories of data types. The actual data types are number, string, boolean, undefined, etc., which comes under primitive data types. Similarly, object, array, function, date, and regex are the data types that fall under the non-primitive category. These two categories were created because they have some fundamental differences. Let's talk about primitive data types first. And here is one primitive data type, number. The first point about primitive data type is primitive data types can hold only a single value, which is why we also call them simple data types. The second point about them is primitive data types are immutable, meaning their values once assigned cannot be changed. For example, if you change the value of a number, which is a primitive data type like this, we assigned a new value to age. Then from outside, it looks like the variable value is modified. But internally, a new variable age is created by the memory of the JavaScript and assigned a new value to it. What happened actually is, for example, this is the memory managed by the JavaScript engine inside the browser. When a new age variable is created for the first time, a new memory is occupied by this variable and the value is stored there in the memory address. But when the variable value is updated or modified to suppose 30, then again a new memory is assigned with a new address like this. And now the variable age is assigned to this new memory address with a new value. Great, right? So that's why numbers, string, and all primitive data types are immutable because their values are never changed. Immutable English meaning is a thing that cannot be changed or modified, right? All right, this is all about primitive data types. Now let's check out non-primitive data types. And here is our first non-primitive data type, which is an array. And here is another one, which is an object. I will cover them in detail later, but here you can identify the first point about non-primitive data types. Non-primitive data types can hold multiple values. And second point, they are mutable and their values can be changed. So if you modify this 3 to 4 in the same array, then it can be done in the same memory at the same location or at the same address. Great. Now let's conclude the differences between them. The first difference is numbers, string, booleans, none-defined, null are primitive data types. And objects, arrays, functions, dates, and regex are non-primitive data types. Second, primitive data types can hold only single value, whereas non-primitive data types can hold multiple values and methods also. The third difference is primitive data types are immutable and their values cannot be changed, whereas non-primitive data types are mutable and their values can be changed. And the last difference is primitive data types are simple data types, whereas non-primitive data types are called complex data types. Why? Because they can hold a list of students, single values, function, arrays, anything they can hold. That's make them complex. Great. Now you are not going to forget this two differences between them ever. What is the difference between null and undefined in JavaScript? Let's first understand the conceptual differences between them. Suppose you have a variable value of 0. This is something like a stand on the wallpaper with a paper holder. So that's an example. This means there is a valid variable with a value of the data type number. That is clear. If the value is empty, then it means it is a string data type, right? But if the variable is assigned a null, that means there is just a stand on the wall with no holder. Means there is a valid variable with a value of no data type. In future, you can assign any number, string or any data type value to it. And if the variable is undefined, that means there is nothing on the wall. This means it is an incomplete variable which is not assigned. Great, now let's understand the differences with the help of the code. Here is that undefined code. As you can see, here we have declared a variable but no value has been assigned to it. And then we are printing the variable and the output is undefined. Simple. This is undefined which is never assigned a value. The definition is when a variable is declared but has not been assigned a value, it is automatically initialized with undefined. On the other hand, here is the code for the null. Here we are declaring the variable and assigning the null value to it. And then we are logging the null variable. And output is as expected null. No surprises. The definition of null is null variables are intentionally assigned a null value. Now the real question is, when in your applications will you use undefined and when you will use null? The answer is undefined can be used when you do not have the value right now, but you will get it after some logic or operation. Then null can be used when you are sure you are not going to get any value for the variable soon. So that is the differences between them. Hi friends, just a small notification. This video is part of my full course, Top 300 JavaScript Interview Questions, including HTML, CSS and Bootstrap. All questions PDF book link is also present below in the description. So like these candidates, if you don't want to miss anything for your interviews, then try it. Otherwise, no problem. Let's continue. What is type coercion in JavaScript? As always, let's see the example code first. Here we have defined some variables with types like a string, number, boolean, value and so on. And here is one code. What we are doing here is adding a string plus a number inside the console log. How is it possible to add a string to a number? It is possible because of type coercion. Type coercion will do the automatic conversion of the number to the string and then concatenate both the strings. The result output will be 4242 like this. So the definition of type coercion is type coercion is the automatic conversion of the values from one data type to another during certain operations or comparisons. Another example is like this. Here is the boolean value true will be automatically converted into a number 1 by type coercion and the output will be 42 plus 1 equal to 43. Similarly, we can use type coercion with the comparison operators like this. The output will be true because type coercion is converting a number 42 to a string. Now the question is, what are the uses of type coercion in real applications? First use is type coercion can be used during string and number concatenation. Second is type coercion can be used while using comparison operators. That's it. When to use which type of conditional statement in real world applications? Alright, we know we have three types of conditions: if else, ternary operators and switch case statements. But the more important question is which condition is better in which kind of situation. First we have this if else condition and here is the sample code. Now here you can see if else can handle any type of complex condition and even multiple conditions with multiple and or multiple or operators it can handle. Also inside the curly braces, the if block can have multiple lines of codes. The point is, if else is good for complex, different and for multi-line executions. And the benefit of if else is it can cover all the types of scenarios, which is why it is the most used one. The second type of condition is ternary operators. Here you can see that this is user equal to true. The requirement of ternary operator is this is user condition should be very simple and short. Then only ternary operators are good. Okay. Now, if it will contains multiple and multiple or greater than, lesser than, like this kind of conditions, then it is better to use the if else condition, not the ternary operator. Otherwise, it will become very difficult to read. Okay, read or write. Another thing is, in ternary operators, mostly a single result value is preferred, like 10 or 20 here, not a multi-line code execution like it was there in the case of if-else condition. If you will do multi-line code here, then again it will be very difficult to read the ternary operators. So the whole point is, ternary operators are used for simple conditions and for single value evaluations. The benefit is, the ternary operator will give a very short and one-line syntax code for your program. The third type of conditional statement is a switch statement, and here is the sample code. Using switch case is a good idea if this variable value day of week is a single value, and it has to be consistent when comparing to every case. For example, this day of week will be applicable to this first case, then again to the second case, and then third case, and so on. So this day of week is the left side value, and that should be a single fixed expression, not like the if condition, where in the if condition the left side is something else, then in the else if condition the left side is something else. It's keep on changing. But in switch cases, efficient left side should be consistent. Next important thing about switch case is, it can efficiently handle multi-line execution like if else, which ternary operators cannot do, right? So finally the point is, switch case is better for the same and consistent left side values, and the benefit is that switch case will provide you with more structured code. Okay, you can see it looks more cleaner and more readable than if else, right? So that's it. That's the comparison between the three. Now these use cases are, you will remember your whole life, right? What is the difference between double equal to and triple equal to? Very important question. Here you can see the code for double equal to, which we also call it loose equality. The reason is that, as you can see here, one is a number and the other one, this is a string. But double equal to operator will convert this one number to a string first by using what? You remember type coercion. Yes, by using type coercion. And then double equal to will do the comparison, and it will give the result as true. And in the second line too, this true will be converted to 1 first, and then it will be compared. And again the result will be true. The point is, loose equality or double equality operator compares two values for equality after performing the type coercion. Whereas here you can see the code for this triple equal to. We also call this strict equality, because it will not use any type coercion before comparison. Okay, and the values will be compared as they are, as they actually they are. And here is the result will always be false if the values are from two different data types. Okay, so the whole point is, a strict equality operator compares two values for equality without performing the type coercion. That is the difference between the two. In real world application, normally strict equality or triple equal to is preferred to get more accurate comparisons. Okay, so that is more logical, right? Great. I think now the difference is fixed like a stamp in your memory. What is the difference between the find and the filter methods in array? Very important question. Here is the list of get methods that are used to get elements from the array. Okay, find, filter, and slice method. Let's check out the differences between the find and filter method first. Suppose we have an array as a variable that contains a list of numbers assigned to it. Now the use of the find method is, find method gets the first element that satisfies a condition. Let me show you how. Here you can see that the find method will accept all the elements of the array one by one. in this num parameter by using the arrow function. So that is arrow function. Arrow function are like normal functions only, and they do accept parameters like normal function. Then inside the find method, there will be this condition like this, and the find function will return the first element of the array. Remember, listen carefully. The first element of the array for which this condition is true. In this case, for element 2, this 2 percentile 2 will be equal to 0, right? Because if you divide 2 by 2, then the remainder will be equal to 0. Therefore, 2 will be the result element of the find function, which will be stored in the variable c then. Now, this condition is also true for this next 4 element also. But remember, with the find function, you only get the first element that satisfies the condition. Great, this is find. Then we have the filter function of the JavaScript. This is used very frequently in many applications, and it is very important. Suppose you have the same array this. Now the use of the filter function is, the filter function gets an array of elements from an array that satisfies the condition. So basically, the find function will find just the first element, but the filter function will get all the elements that satisfies the condition. See the code, and here the logic is exactly the same as find function. All the elements of the array will be accepted as the parameters one by one, and inside there will be a condition. Now the difference is that for whatever element this condition is true, all those elements will be added to the result array, and that array will be finally assigned to this variable d. Got it? So this time you will get 2 and 4 in the result array because both elements satisfies the condition. Remember, the result will be an array this time with the filter method, not a single element. Okay, so that is the difference between them. All right, the way I explained it, I think this difference will remain in your mind forever. What is the difference between while and do while loops? A very important question asked in many interviews. We already know the while loop. Here is the diagram. The definition is that a while loop executes a block of code while a certain condition is true. But if the condition is false, the loop will not execute even a single time, right? Now here is the diagram of the do while loop. Here the do while loop is similar to the while loop, except that the block of code is executed at least one time, even if the condition is false. Meaning the do block will execute at least the first time, and then after the second time, its execution will be dependent on the result of the condition only. Let's see the code. Here is the code for the while loop we already know, and here is the do while loop code. Here the initial value of k is equal to 0. But our condition k is greater than 1, which means condition is false. If it is a while loop, it will not execute inside the code. But do while will definitely execute the code inside this do block first time, even if the condition is false first time. So here do block code, this console log will be executed, and the value of k, which was 0, will be logged like this. And now after the increment, k will be equal to 1. But from the second time onwards, do while execute as per the condition like while only. Therefore, now the block code will not execute because the condition is false now. So that is the difference between two, and now you will remember the differences forever. What is string immutability? Very important concept to know. We know we have browsers installed on our systems, and all these browsers have the JavaScript engine inside them, right? Now the JavaScript engine has the memory to store variables and other things in our programs, okay? So whenever we create a string or variable like this, a new memory has been allocated to the string. That memory will have some address and data inside it, right? Now if we modify the original strings like this, we might think that in the memory the address will remain the same and the value will be changed or updated. But this is not the case. In fact, for the modified string, a new memory address will be allocated and the new value of the new modified string will be stored over there. And that is the string immutability. Immutable means a thing that cannot be modified or changed. And strings are not modifiable and therefore they are immutable. Every time we change the string, internally we are creating a new string in the memory. So the final conclusion is string in JavaScript are considered immutable because you cannot modify the contents of an existing string directly. Now this concept is like a bookmark in your memory, right? What is DOM? What is the difference between HTML and the DOM? Very good and very important question. Let's try to understand with the help of an example. Suppose you are a user and you open the browser and open one website. And here is the static code of that website. This is HTML, right? You can read it and this is for you to code and manipulate. But inside the memory, the computer or the browser will not see this HTML like this. The memory will see it as a DOM representation like this. Here you can see that the HTML tag is the root element, then HTML has head and body as the child elements, and other exact same HTML elements are present here as per the HTML document only, right? This is nothing but the tree-like representation of the same HTML. And this representation we call DOM or sometimes a DOM tree also. Now, if you add, delete or update any HTML element via JavaScript, for example, if the user adds one more paragraph inside the body element, then with the help of the JavaScript, one more node will be created and a new paragraph element will be added. And finally, this DOM tree will again be converted back into the HTML and displayed to the user in the browser. Got it? So basically, this DOM tree enables the user to update or add new elements to this structure. You can also say that the DOM is like an interface to make your website dynamic with the help of JavaScript. The proper definition of the DOM is the DOM, which stands for Document Object Model, represents the web page as a tree-like structure that allows JavaScript to dynamically access and manipulate the content and structure of a web page. In short, HTML is just a markup language for reading and writing purposes for developers and users. In reality, memory plays with DOM. Great, now you will never forget this concept for the rest of your life. What is error handling in JavaScript? Very important concept in JavaScript. Suppose you have a piece of code in your JavaScript program. Here you know this variable is not defined and it will definitely give some error. Now you want to handle and manage that error. Or you can say you want to show a proper error message and log the error in the console or the logs properly. For that purpose, we use error handling in JavaScript. First, we use the try block. If any error occurs inside this try block, then that error will be caught or passed in the catch block. And here you can log or handle the error. In this case, the output will be something like this. Here is the flow of error handling. It will start from executing the try block. If any error occurs, then it will ignore the rest of the try block and execute the catch block. And if no error occurs, then it will ignore the catch block. Simple. So what is error handling? Error handling is the process of managing errors. Now you will remember this like a story. What is asynchronous programming in JavaScript? What is its use? Very good question and very popular. Before asynchronous programming, we need to know what synchronous programming is. Suppose you have 4 functions or tasks like this in your project. Then in synchronous programming, they will execute something like this in sequence. Here, task 2 will only start once the task 1 is finished. At the end, the total time taken by them is simply the sum of the time taken by the individual tasks. But in asynchronous operations, the functions or tasks can execute concurrently, or you can say parallelly. Here, task 2 will not wait for the completion of task 1. Therefore, in asynchronous programming, the total time taken by the same task is lesser than the in the synchronous programming. That is the high level idea. Okay, now let's see the code. What other problems in synchronous programming there are which we can solve by asynchronous programming? Suppose we have the synchronous code. We are starting, then we are calling two functions one by one, and then we are logging the end statement. Now suppose that function is a very time consuming function like this. Here you can say it is doing a time consuming operation. Then we have this function 2, which is very simple, short, and it is independent of function 1. In synchronous programming, function 1 will block the execution of function 2 until function 1 completes itself, right? That is the problem. It will delay the whole operation, and it can also hang or stuck the browser. But in asynchronous programming, function 1 will not block function 2, and both can run concurrently and parallelly. Other than non-blocking benefit, both can functions together will complete in less time, right? That is asynchronous programming, and here are some points which you have to remember about it. Asynchronous programming allows multiple tasks or operations to be executed concurrently. Another very important point is asynchronous operations do not block the execution of the code. Very important point. Now the question is when to use asynchronous programming in what scenarios in real applications. Okay, so the first can be fetching the data from the external API. Second, while downloading the large files. Then while uploading the large files. Then doing some operations like animations and transitions or any time consuming operation. So that is the idea of the use of the synchronous programming. But remember one thing, JavaScript is single threaded, not like C Sharp or Java, which are multi threaded. Okay. So basically, JavaScript can execute single task at a time, but by managing the task's execution properly by asynchronous programming, we can somehow make them concurrent and parallel. Like if one task is waiting for some resources, then at in between we can execute other function in between. So that's how asynchronous programming is possible in JavaScript. Congratulations for completing all the questions. As I always said, most students study to just learn. But you don't have to just learn, you also have to crack the interview. And facing interviews need courage. For that courage and spirit, all the best from my side. And yes, if you have not yet accepted the Never Give Up challenge until you crack the interview, then accept the challenge now by writing Never Give Up in the comment section. And yes, don't forget to like and subscribe the channel. Thank you.